Everybody, welcome to Studio 64. My name's David. I've been searching the interzones for more science, space, and tech news to share with you. And I came across this over at rt.com. Yes. EU and China close to dropping electric vehicle duties, according to Trade Chief. Yes. Brussels imposed tariffs on imports of Chinese electric cars following a high-profile probe. Now, this is very interesting, the way this is discussed here. Because you've noticed in United States, Trump hasn't taken office yet, and yet they're screaming about his tariffs. The interesting thing is, he probably won't. The press will treat Trump. He probably won't even put them in. They're just a tool in negotiations to get what he wants, which in his case, closing the borders on from Mexico and Canada. And saying to China, hey, we're going to impose a further tariff on you if you don't stop the fentanyl from coming in, particularly through Mexico. And of course, the press are now going off their brains about Trump and his tariffs, ignoring the fact that they're used as a bargaining chip in business, as he does. And then, of course, if he doesn't happen to bring those tariffs in, because he gets what he wants, as in Mexico immediately shutting the border, which the Mexican president could have always done up until this point, the press will scream, Trump hasn't brought the tariffs in he talked about, Trump's lying again. It's completely ridiculous. Look at the way the press treat other countries and tariffs. This is really interesting to watch. Brussels and Beijing are close to concluding a pact to eliminate EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle imports. The head of the European Parliament's Trade Committee, Bernd Lang, said on Saturday, in an interview with Germany's NTV news outlet. What's interesting, that is a little side note too. German Mercedes, there is no tariff on them coming into America, and yet Chevy and Ford have, I think it's a 20% tariff. Very difficult to sell Chevys and Fords in Europe. They do have them, but why is it's a one-way street? Very interesting indeed. In October, the European Commission imposed tariffs of up to 35.3% on Chinese-made battery electric vehicles, or BEVs. The levies, which became effective on October the 30th, came on top of the EU's standard 10% duty on imported automobiles. So that's basically what? 45% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, and everyone's banging on about Trump and, his tariffs. Fascinating, isn't it? We are also still negotiating with the Chinese side regarding the electric cars. We are close to a solution with China to abolish the tariffs, Lang told NTV. See, it's a negotiation tactic. They're negotiating with the Chinese side regarding electric cars. This is the EU. I really, yet is anybody talking about this in the media? No, of course not. It's just that dastardly blonde or blumph. It's ridiculous. We are close to an agreement. China could commit to offering the electric cars in the EU at a minimum price, the bloc's top trade official said, emphasising that it could eliminate the distortion of competition through unfair subsidies, which is why the tariffs were originally introduced. So, in this particular case, it's, tit for tat, tariff for tariff, if you like. In Trump's case, the tariff is there for two reasons. One is a negotiating tool to get the border closed and the fentanyl and stop killing young Americans going across the border. The other thing is, too, what do you think's going to happen if there was no tariffs in Mexico or Canada? Ford and General Motors would instantly move their, they've already got factories in Canada and Mexico, but they'd probably move their entire operation there, and Americans would be out of jobs. It's ridiculous. It's just insane to me. We had a guy here in Australia, an electronics entrepreneur by the name of Dick Smith. He started Dick Smith Food. Didn't last that long because he had the stupid philosophy of the prices being a little bit higher on the food, but it was very high quality food. And guess what? It was all Australian food. So pay a little bit more and you're going to be supporting Australian jobs, keeping it local. Right? Absolutely fantastic idea. Of course, everyone said, his food's too expensive. When we're only talking a few pennies here, we weren't talking $500 for a can of bloody peaches or something. But People said, oh, no, we can't afford it. So eventually had to shut down Dick Smith's Foods. There was an entire business, a factory, a processing organisation. All the jobs went because people wouldn't buy local. And you see this all the time. Buy local is always good. But as you can see, it's very similar in the States with these tariffs that Trump, as I say, may or may not bring in. If he does bring them in, I'm hoping that, as I said, that means more manufacturing at a local level, more opportunity for Americans to get jobs in America, decent manufacturing jobs. And the next time there's a pandemic, and believe me, there will be another one, right? You're not going to have the issue of having all your eggs in one basket with China and having logistics issues because you can't get your crap from overseas. So it's just interesting the way that the press deal with tariffs overseas as compared to with that dastardly blanc blanc. We've got the same problem here in Australia. Our government, hardly says a word about tariffs. But they all jump on the bandwagon when it comes to, what was referred to as the tangerine tyrant. I think it's absolutely hilarious. And I just sit there and watch these bloody talking heads on the news bang on about, Trump's going to bring in internment camps and mass deportations. I said, well, okay. Didn't Franklin Delano Roosevelt bring in internment camps in the Second World War for Japanese, Germans, and Italians? The Democrat? Weren't they many generations in the United States? Some of those people, very interesting. And as for mass deportations, have you ever looked up Operation Phalanx or Operation Nimbus, where it's the U.S. Army in conjunction with, Customs and Border Protection, mass deportations, and that was under Obama, 2.5 to 3 million. Obama was known as the deporter in chief. Why is this all Donald Trump being an absolute fascist for doing it? It fascinates me. I mean, you have a look at the percentages of for argument's sake, Hispanic Americans that voted for him, when the majority of people that wanted Trump in voted for this stuff. So, I mean, you can't complain when it's being done, And the mainstream media all over the world going off about it cracks me up. Again, comes back to the tariffs. Concentrating on tariffs when they're not giving, it's a negotiation tool for Trump. And even if it does come in, there's going to be opportunities for Americans. It's not the end of the goddamn world. It's insane. Same here in Australia. See an opportunity. Run with it. People fascinate me. Yes, very interesting. Yes, now the duties were imposed following a year-long high-profile trade investigation by the EU. Brussels argued that the action was necessary to protect European car makers from unfair competition, noting that Chinese producers benefited from state subsidies. Interesting. Interesting indeed, isn't it? Yes, something else to hate, Donald Trump about, but when the EU do it, they're perfectly justified. Fascinating. The measure divided the EU and triggered retaliation from Beijing. Germany, one of the world's biggest car producers, voiced its objections to the tariff, along with Hungary, warning of a trade war and calling for a negotiated solution. Excuse me. We must caffeinate. Now, in response, Beijing imposed provisional tariffs on liquor coming from the bloc. The temporary anti-dumping levies that came into force on October 11 ranged from 30.6% to 39%. Now, in August, the Chinese Commerce Ministry announced that according to preliminary findings, European producers were selling goods in China below market rates, threatening substantial damage to domestic producers. Anti-dumping probes were also launched into the EU pork and dairy products. So all this stuff's going all over the world. No one's making a big stink about it, but our little mate up here in the corner, good old Trumpy, right, is getting completely hammered by it. Plus, I also think it's a distraction. It's going to get him, what he wants on border control, but it's also a distraction. Notice how very few of them are now talking about the picks for his cabinet. This is the, just literally flood the news zone, the 24-hour news cycle with stuff. just to keep the bloody press on their toes, because I think he's learned a lot from 2016. Again, like Trump or hate him, it's very interesting to watch the press and watch the way they react. And you know that he must be over the target by the amount of flack he's copping. So he must be doing something, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. He must be putting the right people up the rear end to get this kind of response, as Trump always does. Fascinating. All right, well, what I'll do for you too is I'll leave a link below this video that'll give you a bit of more background on this EU and China electric vehicle duty, so the tariffs, and it'll give you a bit more background. And just check it out. As I say, it'll keep you well informed. Interesting. All right. Well, my name is David. Thanks for joining me for another Studio 64 Science, Space and Tech News update. I shall see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you're up for it, drop a comment down below the video, because I'd love to hear what you think. All right, take care. And as I always say, if you can't be good at it. And as I also always say,
my nipples are very sensitive.